The reinforced doors of the maternity suite do not burst open. They open precisely, the way Lee Min-jae does everything, controlled, deliberate, and somehow more threatening for it. The soft click of the latch is louder than a gunshot. Han Seo-jun, 16 hours of labor behind him, twin suns pressed against his chest, dark curls damp against his forehead, looks up expecting the man he married. What enters the room instead is the head of the John Syndicate. Same face, different eyes. Eyes the color of deep water where nothing lives. The juxtaposition is immediate and savage. Two newborns wrapped in white, small enough to hold in one arm each, their mouths working in sleep like they are already practicing how to ask for things, against a man in a charcoal suit who has not yet looked at them once. His gaze moves across the room the way it always does. Threat assessment first, everything else never. You did well, Min-jae says. He does not say, you gave me sons. He does not say, they are perfect. He does not cross the room. He does not touch them, or Seo-jun, or anything in this room that has warmth in it. The secondary estate has been prepared. You leave tonight. This is the hook, not the cruelty of the words, but the precision of them. Min-jae does not say don't touch me. He doesn't have to. The distance he maintains is its own command. He has looked at his newborn heirs and classified them, in the span of 10 seconds, as variables in a succession problem. He has looked at Seo-jun, the man who carried them, who fought for 16 hours to bring them into the world breathing, and seen a liability to be managed. And here is what the competitor's story cannot give you. Seo-jun does not break. His jaw tightens. That is all. He looks down at the faces of his sons. The identical dark lashes, the tiny fists clenched like they already know the world requires it. And something moves through him that is not grief and is not rage. It is colder than both. It is clear. When he looks back up, Min-jae is already turning toward the door. The signal is not a story about a man who will spend 9 chapters waiting to be loved. The signal from this first image, 2 men, 2 infants, a room full of distance, is that Han Seo-jun has just decided something. And Lee Min-jae, walking away without looking back, has no idea what it cost him to turn around. Before I tell you what happens next, subscribe to Starry-Eyed Lovers, and tell me where you're watching from. The syndicate car is black, long, and waiting at the hospital's private exit like a coffin with leather seats. The driver stands beside it with the particular stillness of a man who has been told not to make eye contact. A second man, younger, earpiece in, hand near his jacket, stands 3 feet to the left. Standard John protocol. 2 bodies minimum for any asset transfer. Seo-jun walks past them without breaking stride. Sir. The driver takes a half step forward. Mr. Lee has arranged. I know what Mr. Lee has arranged, Seo-jun says, and his voice is pleasant, and his voice is final. He does not look back. He pushes through the glass doors into the cold soul night with 1 son in each arm and the particular kind of exhaustion that lives behind the eyes and nowhere else. The kind that has no interest in sleep because there is too much to do. His body is 16 hours of labor behind him. His mind is 3 years ahead. He makes the call before he reaches the curb. It rings twice. I wondered when you'd use this number, says the voice on the other end. Park Sung-il, former head of John Syndicate Internal Security. Resigned 2 years ago under circumstances that were officially described as personal and were not. The debt between them is old and specific and has never been spoken aloud in its entirety, which is exactly the kind of debt that holds. I need a floor, Seo-jun says. Private entrance. Secure. Nothing that touches the John network. A pause that is not hesitation. The Park Hyatt. East Tower. I'll have it ready in 40 minutes. I have the boys. Another pause. Shorter. 40 minutes, Sung-il says again, and this time it sounds like a promise. I'll send my own car. The line goes dead. Seo-jun stands on the pavement in the November cold, his sons warm against his chest, their breath rising in small white clouds, and watches the syndicate car idle at the curb for another 30 seconds before the driver, receiving some instruction through his earpiece, folds himself back inside and pulls away. Good, Seo-jun thinks. Go tell him. The suite is on the 41st floor, and it is, in the understated vocabulary of places that cost this much, immaculate. Floor-to-ceiling glass. The Han River a black ribbon below, city lights trembling in it. Sung-il's people have already swept the room by the time Seo-jun arrives. He can tell by the way they stand, finished and waiting, with the specific posture of professionals who do not need to be told twice. Clean? Seo-jun asks. Clean, says the woman nearest the door. She is compact and unhurried, and her eyes do the same thing Sung-il's always did. Move before her head does. We'll rotate on the floor every 2 hours. Thank you. He means it. You can wait outside. He settles his sons into the twin bassinets that have been positioned, already, beside the bed. Sung-ael thought of that, and Seo-jun files it away as another weight on an already heavy scale. He stands over them for a moment and watches their faces in the low light. They do not know where they are. They do not know what they have been born into. Their fists are clenched and their mouths are soft, and they are, against all the cold mathematics of the last 24 hours, perfect. Not yet, he tells them silently. You don't need to know yet. He opens the laptop. The call to his attorney is brief because they have rehearsed, in a sense, for this, not the specifics, but the shape of it. Attorney Yoon has been on private retainer for 2 years, engaged through a firm that shares no letterhead with anything in the John family's considerable legal infrastructure. She does not ask how he is. She asks what she needs to know. The bonding contract has a succession clause, Seo-jun says. Subsection 9, paragraph 4. I need to know if the board can invoke it unilaterally. They cannot, Yoon says, and he can hear her already moving, already pulling files. Not without a formal petition and a 60-day review period. But Seo-jun, if they've already begun the paperwork. They haven't, he says. They don't know yet that they need to. A beat. Make sure we're positioned before they figure it out. Understood. The trust documentation. I'm looking at it now. He is. 3 years of quiet architecture spread across the screen in columns and account numbers and shell company names that mean nothing to anyone who does not know how to read them. He built this the way you build anything in a house where the walls might be listening. Slowly, in pieces, each piece looking like something else entirely. A personal investment account here. A charitable foundation there. A series of redirected microtransactions that, individually, would not flag any forensic audit, and which, together, represent a significant portion of the John Syndicate's offshore holdings now sitting in a structure that requires his signature to move. He did not steal from Min-jae. He simply ensured that what belonged to his sons could not be taken from them. The dual trust is solid, Yoon confirms. 6 jurisdictions. I'd like to add a 7th before you move. Do it. It'll take 72 hours. You have 48, Seo-jun says. The board moves fast when it smells blood. He closes the laptop when there is nothing left to review. Orders room service, something warm, something with enough calories to remind his body that it is still required to function. While he waits, he sits in the chair between the 2 bassinets and watches his sons breathe. The rise and fall of their small chests. The way the younger one, even in sleep, turns his face slightly toward his brother, as if already practicing the habit of not being alone. Seo-jun thinks about Min-jae turning toward the door. That particular set of the shoulders. The deliberate absence of hesitation. He thinks, you taught me everything I know about building walls. Then he thinks, you should have wondered what I was doing on my side of them. The food arrives. He eats by the window with the city spread out below him. 41 floors of distance between himself and everything that expected him to disappear quietly. His body aches. His mind is a clean, organized room. His sons sleep behind him with their fists clenched like they already know something. He is not afraid. He has been preparing for this moment for 3 years, in the margins of a marriage that never looked at him long enough to notice. Now it is here, and it is cold, and it is his. He orders tea. He watches the river. He lets the night do what nights do. He waits for morning. It happens at 11:47 p.m. Seo-jun is not asleep. He has not been asleep. He is sitting in the chair between the bassinets with the lamp on its lowest setting, reading a contract amendment on his phone with the particular focus of a man who has learned to use silence productively, when the red dot appears on the window glass. A single point of light, no larger than a fingertip, traveling in a slow arc across the surface, and then gone. Less than a second. Maybe half that. He is already moving. He does not think sniper. He does not think anything with words. His body makes the calculation faster than language allows. He is on his feet, both infants lifted from their bassinets in one continuous motion, and then he is down behind the solid mass of the mahogany dresser against the interior wall, his back pressed to it, one son against each shoulder, their warmth the only warm thing in the room. The window does not break. No shot comes, but the hotel's security system triggers 12 seconds later. A soft triple tone that means the perimeter sensor on the roof access has tripped. And then there are boots in the corridor, Sung-ael's people moving fast and quiet, and a voice outside the door saying clear, checking east stairwell, and the room fills with the specific charged silence of a threat that has not yet decided what it wants to be. Seo-jun stays on the floor. His sons are awake now, the older one blinking in confusion, the younger already gathering himself toward a sound that Seo-jun forestalls by pressing his lips to the boy's forehead and exhaling slowly. The way he has learned works, the way no one taught him. His own heartbeat is elevated. He is aware of this with clinical detachment, the way you are aware of weather. 12 minutes. That is how long it takes Lee Min-jae to walk through the door. 12 minutes from the security trigger to his presence in the doorway. Still in the charcoal suit, or one exactly like it, as if he has not been to sleep either. Which means the surveillance was already in place before the laser sight appeared. Which means he knew where Seo-jun was from the moment the syndicate car drove away empty. Seo-jun looks up at him from the floor and says nothing. Min-jae takes in the room in a single sweep. The empty bassinets, the displaced lamp, Seo-jun on the floor behind the dresser with both infants held against him. And something moves through his expression that is not readable as anything Seo-jun has a name for. He crosses the room in 4 strides. He crouches down, and then, without asking and without explaining, he turns and places himself between Seo-jun and the window, his back to the glass, his body as a wall. The silence lasts long enough to become something. "You had eyes on this suite," Seo-jun says finally. His voice is even. He is proud of how even it is. "Yes." "From when?" "From before you arrived." Seo-jun looks at the side of Min-jae's face. The jawline, the syndicate mark on his neck. The way he is scanning the window from this angle with the practiced focus of a man calculating angles of entry, probability of second shot, structural integrity of the wall beside them. He is still doing threat assessment. Even now, even here on the floor. "You could have told me," Seo-jun says. "You would have left." "I did leave." "You would have left somewhere I couldn't cover." Min-jae's voice does not change register. It is the same tone he uses for everything, operational, precise, stripped of the frequencies that would make it human. And yet, the Park Hyatt was the correct choice. Sung-ael's team is competent. I made a judgment call to observe rather than intervene. And the red dot? Woolsung. Reconnaissance, not a shot. They wanted to know if you had protection. A pause. Now they know. One of the twins makes a small sound, not distress, just the vocal equivalent of noticing the world. And Seo-jun shifts him automatically, a small adjustment of his arm, and the sound stops. Min-jae's eyes move to the infant. He does not look away immediately, the way he did in the hospital. He looks for 2 full seconds, which for Lee Min-jae is something close to a long time. "They're all right," Seo-jun says. It comes out softer than he intends. "I can see that." Min-jae looks back at the window. "We need to move you. Back to the secondary estate. Back to the main house." Seo-jun is quiet for a moment. "That's not what you said this morning. This morning Woolsung didn't have a sight line on my sons." The words land without particular emphasis. "My sons." As if he has always said it. As if the hospital did not happen. Seo-jun decides, for now, not to pull that thread. There will be time for threads later. "I want Sung-ael's people to stay on," he says. "Done. I want my own room. Not the East Wing Annex. A room with a direct line to the nursery. A beat. Done. And I want it understood," Seo-jun says, "that I am not being retrieved. I am choosing to come back. There is a difference, and I need you to know that I know it." Min-jae turns his head then, not his whole body, just his head, and looks at Seo-jun directly for the first time since the hospital. It is a different kind of looking than the threat assessment. It is the kind that takes something in rather than cataloging it. "Understood," he says. They stay on the floor for another 90 seconds while Sung-ael's team confirms the stairwells clear and the rooftop access sealed. The city hums 41 floors below them. The twins have both gone quiet, lulled by the warmth and the stillness and the particular animal reassurance of 2 heartbeats close together. It is the first time he has used himself as a shield for Seo-jun. Not ordered someone else into position. Not arranged the geometry of protection from a distance. Himself. His own body between Seo-jun and the glass, in a room he didn't have to enter, in a posture that offers no advantage to anyone except the person behind him. Seo-jun is aware of this with the same clinical detachment he applied to his own elevated heartbeat 40 minutes ago. It does not help. He hates how much it costs him to feel how much it means. This one thing, this small and insufficient thing, offered without explanation or apology in a hotel room in the middle of the night. He has built 3 years of careful architecture against exactly this. Against the specific danger of Min-jae doing one right thing at the exact moment Seo-jun is too tired to defend against it. He says nothing. He adjusts his grip on his sons. He waits for the all-clear. He lets himself feel it for exactly 30 seconds. Then he puts it away. They arrive at the John estate at 3 a.m., which is the hour that strips everything down to its essential form. No staff visible. No ceremony. The main gates open as the car approaches, and close behind them with the soft hydraulic precision of something that has been waiting. Seo-jun does not ask where they are taking him. He knows the estate's geography. 3 years of living adjacent to this world, even at its margins, teaches you the floor plan whether you want it or not. He notes the turn at the second fountain. The east corridor, not the west. The east wing, then. Not the secondary residence Min-jae originally intended, but not the main house either. Something in between. A gilded cage is still a cage. He knows this. He holds his sons against his chest in the back seat and says nothing and watches the grounds move past the window and knows this. What he does not expect is the nursery. The staff member, a woman named Ms. On, introduced in 3 words and a small bow, leads him through a corridor he has never used and opens a door at its end, and Seo-jun steps through it and stops. The room is warm. Not the ambient warmth of a building's heating system, but the deliberate warmth of a space tuned to a specific temperature. 22 degrees, he will later confirm, which is the temperature he once mentioned, once, in passing, to no one in particular, standing in a hallway 2 years ago while reading an article on newborn care on his phone. The lighting is low and amber, the color that does not shock new eyes. 2 cribs stand side by side against the interior wall, the exact model, that he had paused on for 11 seconds in that same article before scrolling past. He had not bookmarked it. He had not spoken of it aloud. The blankets folded over the crib rails are the softest thing he has touched in recent memory. A rocking chair sits at the window, angled. He measures it without meaning to, at precisely the position that will catch the morning light when it comes. Seo-jun stands in the center of the room for a long moment. His sons are quiet. The city beyond the window is dark and distant. Somewhere in this house, or not in this house, Lee Min-jae is doing whatever Lee Min-jae does at 3 a.m., and he is not here, and he did not build this room last night. He built it over time. Piece by piece, detail by detail, from things Seo-jun said when no one was supposed to be listening. Is there anything you need? Mizon asks from the doorway. No, Seo-jun says. Then, who gave the specifications for this room? A pause so brief it almost isn't one. Mr. Lee provided a list. When? Mizon considers the question with the careful expression of a woman who understands that honesty and loyalty are not always compatible and has made her peace with which one wins. The list was updated most recently 3 months ago, she says. But the first version was submitted approximately 2 years back. Seo-jun nods as if this is information he can simply file and move on from. Thank you. I'll call if I need anything. She leaves. The door closes with the same soft precision as the estate gates. He settles into the rocking chair. It takes his weight the way chairs do when they have been chosen for a body rather than a room. One son in each arm, their heads at his shoulders, their breathing evening out as warmth and stillness do their work. He looks at the room. The room looks back. Min-jae never forgot a single thing he said. This is the fact he is sitting with, and it is not a comfortable fact. It does not fit into the architecture he has spent 3 years building. The internal structure that holds the weight of a marriage that never looked at him, a bond that was signed rather than chosen, a man who classified his newborn sons as succession variables and walked away from a hospital room without once looking back. That structure is load-bearing. He has made decisions from it. He has built his entire parallel empire on the foundational premise that Lee Min-jae does not see him. And here is a room that says otherwise. Here is a rocking chair at exactly the right angle. Here is a crib model from an article he read alone in a corridor that he never mentioned to anyone. He does not lower his guard. He is not naive enough for that, and he has not survived 3 years in the orbit of the John Syndicate by confusing a single gesture for a pattern. A man can remember every detail of someone he intends to control. Precision is not tenderness. Architecture is not love. But he looks at the softest blankets he has touched in years, folded over a crib that no one was supposed to know he wanted, in a room built in pieces from things spoken into empty hallways, and he allows himself, carefully, provisionally, the way you test ice before your full weight, to ask a different question. Not does he see me? That question has an answer, and the answer is written in the hospital room, and it is cold. But what is he afraid of? Because these are not the actions of a man who does not notice. These are the actions of a man who notices everything and chooses, very deliberately, what to do with the information. And the choosing, the specific pattern of what Min-jae acts on and what he buries, is beginning to look in this light at this hour like something other than indifference. Seo-jun does not know yet what it looks like instead. He is not ready to name it. He is not certain he wants to. The smaller twin sighs in his sleep, a complete and satisfied sound, the sound of a body that has decided the world is provisionally acceptable. And Seo Jun looks down at him and feels the complicated thing that lives behind his sternum shift slightly in its housing. Not yet, he thinks, to the room, to himself, to the man somewhere in this house who built it. You don't get credit yet. But the question is there now, quiet and persistent, the kind that does not leave once it has been asked. He rocks slowly in the chair that was chosen for him. The morning light is still hours away. He watches his sons breathe and lets the question sit beside him in the dark, and does not answer it, and does not send it away. He waits for what the house will tell him next. Before I tell you what happens next, subscribe to Starry-Eyed Lovers, and tell me where you're watching from. The document arrives through Attorney Yoon's office at 9:14 on a Tuesday morning, which means Elder Choi filed it before the working day officially began. That kind of timing is not administrative efficiency. That is a man who woke up early because he was looking forward to it. Seo Jun reads it twice at the desk in the East Wing sitting room while his sons sleep in the adjoining nursery, and the morning light does exactly what the rocking chair promised it would. The language is formal and meticulous and carefully neutral, which is how you write a document designed to do damage while appearing reasonable. A full paternity verification. Board-appointed medical team. Required before succession documentation can be processed. Standard procedural language wrapped around a blade. He sets the document down. He picks up his phone. I've seen it, Yoon says before he speaks. How long can they extend the review period if the verification is contested? Up to 90 days. And if they appoint their own specialists, which they will, they can manufacture technical delays on top of that. So 6 months before the twins have any formal standing. Potentially. Seo Jun. I know, he says. I'll handle it from this end. He ends the call. He sits for a moment with the document in front of him and the particular quality of silence that comes from understanding exactly what is being done to you and by whom and why. Elder Choi has been on the board for 19 years. He did not file this petition because he doubts the paternity. He filed it because a 60-day review period creates a window, and a window creates options. And Elder Choi has spent 2 decades turning other people's windows into his own doors. It is not about doubt. It is about the public record. A formal paternity question, once filed, becomes a permanent notation. Retrievable. Reframable. The kind of document that 3 years from now, in the right boardroom with the right framing, becomes there were questions about the legitimacy of the heirs. And by then the truth is less relevant than the record. Seo Jun understands this because he has been studying these men since the day he signed the bonding contract and understood that survival in this house would require fluency in a language no one intended to teach him. He goes to find Min-jae. The study is on the 2nd floor of the main house, a room Seo Jun has entered fewer than a dozen times in 3 years. Not because he was forbidden, there were no explicit rules of that kind, but because Min-jae's study was one of those spaces that communicated its own boundaries through atmosphere alone. The closed door, the silence behind it, the understood geometry of a man who conducts his most important work where no one can observe the process. Seo Jun does not knock. The door opens onto lamplight and the smell of black tea gone cold, and Lee Min-jae behind a desk that holds 3 open files, a phone face down, and the particular organized stillness of a man who has been sitting very still for a long time. He does not look up when the door opens. He continues reading. They filed the request, Seo Jun says. I know. Are you going to do something about it? It's procedural. Min-jae turns a page. His voice is the same register it always is. Level, uninflected, a frequency designed not to give anything away. Seo Jun walks into the room. He crosses to the desk, and he leans both hands flat on its surface, and he waits until the silence makes it impossible for Min-jae not to look up. It takes 4 seconds. When Min-jae finally raises his eyes, Seo Jun holds them. It's a move, Seo Jun says. And you know it's a move. Elder Choi doesn't doubt the paternity. He doesn't care about the paternity. He cares about the 90-day window and the permanent notation and the record he can use in 3 years when he decides to make it mean something. He keeps his voice even. He keeps his hands flat on the desk. So I need to know, right now in this room, are those boys your sons or are they assets? Because the answer changes what I do next. Min-jae looks at him. Not through him, not past him, not at the operational variables surrounding him, at him. It is the same quality of looking as the hotel floor, direct and taking something in, and it lasts long enough that Seo Jun becomes aware of his own heartbeat. The silence extends past the point of comfortable. Seo-jun begins to straighten. They are my sons. The voice is low. It carries the absolute quality of a foundation. Something laid before the building went up. Something that was always there under the procedural language and the operational assessments and the hospital room and all of it. Not performed. Not calculated. The first true thing Lee Min-jae has said out loud since this began. Sit down, he says. Seo-jun sits. He is aware, distantly, that this is the first time he has sat in this room. The first time he has been asked to. The chair faces the desk squarely, and the lamp between them makes the light equal. Min-jae closes the files. He sets his hands on the desk in a way that mirrors, almost exactly, how Seo-jun's had been flat, deliberate, a posture that means this is the conversation now. Choi filed through Jang's subcommittee, he says. Which means he has at least 3 board votes committed, or he wouldn't have moved yet. 4, Seo-jun says. Elder Beck abstained on the succession protocol vote last March. Abstention in that context means he's available. Min-jae is quiet for a moment. You've been watching the board. I've been watching everything. Something shifts in the room. Not dramatically. Min-jae is not a man who permits dramatic shifts, but in the specific way that 2 people recalibrate when one of them reveals they know more than the other estimated. He looks at Seo-jun with that recalibrating attention, and Seo-jun looks back, and does not explain himself, and does not apologize for it. Choi needs a 5th vote to force the verification timeline, Min-jae says finally. I can block the appointment of his medical team through the procedural review clause. That buys 3 weeks. 3 weeks is enough to make the petition irrelevant. How? Min-jae opens the center desk drawer and removes a single sheet. Already prepared, Seo-jun notes, which means he has been thinking about this since before the document arrived, which means he anticipated Choi's move and chose to wait and see what Seo-jun would do with the information first. He is being tested. He understands this without resentment. He would have done the same. Counterfiling through the direct succession clause, Min-jae says, sliding the sheet across the desk. It supersedes the verification requirement if both parents sign. It closes Choi's window before it opens. Seo-jun reads the document. It is precise and it is airtight, and it requires his signature alongside Min-jae's, which means it also requires Min-jae to formally acknowledge him, in writing on record, before the full board, as a co-holder of succession rights. He looks up. You prepared this before I came in here. Min-jae meets his eyes. Yes. You were waiting to see if I'd come. A pause. Yes. Seo-jun looks at the document for a moment longer. Then he picks up the pen from the desk, Min-jae's pen, expensive and heavy, and signs his name in the space provided, clean and unhesitating. He sets the pen down. Don't make me come find you again, he says. If it concerns our sons, I expect to be told. Min-jae looks at the signature. Then at Seo-jun. Understood, he says. It is not an apology, but in the language of this room, of this man, it is the closest available word. It starts the way fevers always start in new bodies. Not dramatically, but as a shift in temperature that registers in the hands before the mind catches up. Seo-jun wakes at 1:47 a.m. to the sound of Dole's breathing, which is not labored, not alarming, but different in the specific way that different means pay attention. He is out of bed before he is fully conscious. The thermometer reads 38.2. Not dangerous. The pediatrician's threshold for concern in a newborn this age is 38, and the number sits just above it, which means it requires monitoring and comfort, and nothing more clinical than that. Seo-jun knows this. He has read everything there is to read on the subject and has committed the relevant thresholds to memory the way he commits everything important, quietly, without announcing it, in the margins of other activities. He knows it is not dangerous. He sits with Dole anyway. The name is not official. It is not in any document. It emerged 3 days ago in the way that private languages do. Not chosen, just present suddenly, the way you notice a path only after you have already walked it several times. Seo-jun had been talking to the smaller twin, narrating the morning the way he has learned to do, because the research suggests voices matter and silence in new environments registers as absence. And he had said, come on, Dole, without knowing why that word, and the baby had stilled and blinked, and that had been enough. He has not mentioned it to Min-jae. Min-jae has not mentioned it to him. But 2 days ago Seo-jun heard, through the nursery wall, Min-jae on a phone call pause mid-sentence and say, very quietly, one moment, and then softer still, in the direction of the crib, quiet Dole. And then back to the phone, seamless, as if nothing had occurred. Seo-jun had stood very still on his side of the wall. Now he sits in the rocking chair in the dark with Dole against his chest and the thermometer on the side table and the specific quality of 2 a.m. around him. Not the charged 2 a.m. of the hotel floor with laser sights and security sweeps, but the deep, ordinary 2 a.m. of a small body running a minor fever and a parent sitting with it, because that is what you do. He begins to sing. It is not a song with a title. It is the kind of song that exists only in the memory of the person who carries it. His grandmother's voice in a kitchen that smelled of doenjang and persimmon. A melody in a dialect that has fewer speakers every year, all round vowels and a rhythm that does not hurry. It does not have words that mean anything narrative. It has words that mean the night is long, but it ends. You are held. You are not alone. He sings it softly, barely above a whisper, his lips near Dole's temple, rocking in the chair that was placed at exactly the right angle to catch light that is still hours away. He becomes aware of Min-jae in the doorway at 2:23 a.m. He does not know how long Min-jae has been standing there before the awareness arrives. It announces itself not as sound or movement, but as a change in the quality of the room, the way a space adjusts itself around a presence. Seo-jun does not turn to look. He does not stop singing. He keeps his eyes on Dole's face, which is flushed and soft and slowly, gradually, relaxing towards something easier. Min-jae does not speak. He does not announce himself, or explain himself, or apologize for standing in a doorway in the middle of the night listening to a song he was not meant to hear. He simply stands there, and Seo-jun sings, and between them is the particular understanding of two people who have decided, without negotiating it, to let something be what it is without naming it. The song goes through 2 verses and circles back. Dole's breathing slows. His small body, which has been running its urgent, invisible battle against a minor invasion, begins to stand down. The heat at his forehead remains but softens, the fever doing its work and the work nearly done. Seo-jun checks the thermometer without interrupting the melody. 38.0, holding, moving in the right direction. He's all right, Seo-jun says quietly to the room to the doorway. I know, Min-jae says. His voice is low. He has been standing there long enough that it has lost its operational edge. It is just his voice, without the register he uses for boardrooms and orders and the careful management of distance. I checked the monitor. Then why are you still up? A pause. I heard the chair. Seo-jun looks down at Dole. The rocking chair. It carries through the wall. There is nothing to say to this that would not cost too much at 2 a.m., so Seo-jun says nothing, and Min-jae, who appears to have reached the same calculation, also says nothing. There is only the soft rhythmic motion of the chair and the baby's breath, and the city somewhere beyond the window doing its quiet nocturnal business. At 2:31 a.m., Min-jae steps into the room. He does not ask permission. He crosses to the second chair, the one positioned beside the rocking chair, the one that has not been used before, and pulls it forward slightly and sits. Not close enough to touch. Close enough to be present. He rests his forearms on his knees and looks at Dole's sleeping face with the expression of a man who is trying to do something he does not have a practiced method for. Seo-jun watches him from the corner of his eye. The syndicate tattoo at his neck. The slight loosening around his jaw that only happens, Seo-jun has noticed, when Min-jae believes no one is assessing him. He looks younger in the dark. He looks like someone who is tired in a way that has nothing to do with sleep. The other one, Seo-jun says softly. I've been calling him Bile. Min-jae is quiet for a moment. Star. He looks up, Seo-jun says. Every time. Whatever is above him. He always looks. Min-jae says nothing. But after a moment he nods, once the way he confirms operational intelligence, a small precise movement that means received, understood, retained. They do not speak again. The hours move the way hours do when you are not trying to manage them, slowly at first, then all at once. The thermometer drops to 37.8 and then 37.6. Dole's breathing settles into the long, deep rhythm of a body that has finished its work and is now simply resting. Outside, the dark holds for a while and then begins, by degrees, to consider other options. When the light through the nursery window finally shifts from black to the particular gray that precedes dawn, Seo-jun realizes that Min-jae is still there. Has been there for 2.5 hours. Has not moved. Has not checked his phone. Has not managed anything or assessed anything or maintained any of the distances that have defined every interaction between them for 3 years. He has just been present. They do not speak in the morning about the nursery or the song or the hours in the dark. Mizon brings breakfast at 7 and Min-jae is back in his suit and back in the vocabulary of measured distances, and Seo-jun is back in his, and nothing is said. But the chair has been moved. It is still beside the rocking chair, 3 inches closer than it was before. Neither of them puts it back. The notification arrives at 4:17 p.m. on a Thursday, through a channel that does not exist in any of Seo Jun's registered communications infrastructure. Not his phone, not his secure laptop. Through the tablet he uses exclusively for the twins' medical records. A device whose number is known to 4 people in the world, none of whom are affiliated with the Woolsung clan or anyone who should have any knowledge that the device exists. That is the first thing that lands. Before the photograph, before the text, before any of it, the channel. Someone inside the estate's network mapped his devices. Someone with access to the internal system's deep architecture fed that information outward, and the Woolsung clan used it to tell him, before a single word, "We are closer than you think." Then the photograph. Jiho is 23 years old, and he has his mother's jaw and Seo Jun's eyes, and he is sitting on a concrete floor in front of a corrugated metal wall holding that morning's Jungong ilbo with both hands, and looking directly at the camera with the particular expression of someone who has been told exactly what expression to make, and is complying because they are frightened, and because compliance is the correct tactical choice when frightened. He is not visibly injured. His hands are steady. He is doing everything right. Good, Seo Jun thinks, in the part of his mind that processes information before the rest of him catches up. Stay steady, Jiho. I'm coming. The text below the photograph is one line. Relinquish custody of both heirs within 48 hours. Jiho does not come home. Seo Jun is moving before the screen locks. The go bag is in the bottom of the East Wing wardrobe, packed 3 weeks ago, refreshed last Tuesday, containing everything required for a 72-hour operation conducted without institutional support. Cash in 3 currencies. 2 clean phones. A first aid kit that goes beyond the standard definition of the term. He has it open on the bed and is pulling items with the focused efficiency of someone running a checklist they have memorized when his phone buzzes. He ignores it. He is in the corridor, bag on his shoulder, 40 seconds after receiving the photograph. Min-jae steps out of the doorway at the corridor's midpoint as if he has been standing just inside it, waiting, which he has been. He does not reach for Seo Jun. He simply stands in the corridor's center, and the corridor is not wide enough to go around him without making it a confrontation. So Seo Jun stops. Don't, Min-jae says. My brother is in that photograph. I know. I saw it 4 minutes ago. Then you know I'm leaving. I know you think you are. Min-jae's voice is not raised. It is never raised. But it has a quality now that is different from its operational register. Tighter, stripped of the careful evenness, something pressed close to the surface that he is containing through precision of language rather than actual calm. Listen to me. The channel they used to send that message, that tablet, that number, only exists inside the estate's internal network. No external party should have it. Seo Jun is already still. He was already still the moment he saw the channel, but hearing it said aloud in Min-jae's voice makes it a different kind of real. There is a mole in my inner circle, Min-jae says. Someone inside this house has been feeding operational intelligence to Woolsung. They knew which channel to use because someone told them, which means they know our response protocols. They know our routes. If you go alone, you walk into a room they have already built for you. He pauses. Something moves behind his eyes. Not the operational recalibration Seo Jun has learned to read, not the threat assessment, but something rawer and less practiced that Min-jae is not quite managing to keep below the surface. You do not come back. The corridor is quiet. From the nursery at the far end, the soft ambient sound of the white noise machine Ms. on uses during afternoon sleep. The ordinary sounds of the house continuing its ordinary functions around a conversation that is anything but. I am asking you, Min-jae says, not to go alone. It is the closest he has ever come to it. Seo Jun hears what is underneath the words. The specific thing Min-jae is not able to say directly, that he is perhaps not yet able to say to himself, and he holds it for a moment with the care it deserves. Not leverage, not a point scored, just the fact of it, plain and costly, offered in a corridor at 4 p.m. by a man who does not ask for things. He's been there since at least this morning, Seo Jun says. The newspaper in the photograph is the early edition. That's a minimum 8-hour hold. I know. The industrial location, corrugated metal, concrete floor, the light angle in the photograph suggests north-facing, no windows above shoulder height. Port District or the old manufacturing zone in Mapo. Min-jae's eyes sharpen. Mapo. We have 3 known Woolsung-adjacent properties in that corridor. Then we have a starting point. Seo Jun holds his gaze. How fast can you move? Something settles in Min-jae's face. Not relief. He does not permit relief, but the particular quality of a man who has been holding attention and can now redirect it into action. The car is already running, he says. I need 2 minutes. You have won. Seo-jun goes back to the room. He puts the go bag down and repacks the top section with the specific items relevant to an extraction rather than a solo operation. One fewer clean phone, the medical kit repositioned, space made for the earpiece now in his hand. He stands at the nursery door for 30 seconds. The twins are asleep, both of them. Bile on his back with his face turned upward as always and Dole curled toward his brother in the habit they have already formed of not being entirely separate even in sleep. He does not go in. He does not wake them. He memorizes them exactly as they are. The rise of their breathing, the particular light, the chair still 3 inches out of place where Min-jae left it. And he carries the image like a stone in his chest, solid and anchoring, as he pulls the door almost closed and turns back to the corridor. Min-jae is waiting at the end of it. Jacket changed. Something at his side that the jacket covers. The operational stillness back in full, but underneath it, in the set of his jaw and the fact that he is here himself rather than sending a team. The thing he said in the corridor is still present. Still true. Seo-jun falls into step beside him. Not behind. Beside. If it's Mapo, Seo-jun says as they move toward the east exit. I know the secondary road access. Ji-ho and I used to take the river path when we were younger. I know that district better than your maps do. Min-jae glances at him. Then navigate. Outside, the car is running. The evening is cold and getting colder, the kind of dark that comes early in November and means business. They get in. The gate opens. Seo-jun does not look back at the house. He keeps his eyes forward and his hands steady, and the image of his son's sleeping faces pressed flat against the inside of his ribs where nothing can reach it. Ji-ho, he thinks. I'm 12 minutes out. Stay steady. The car moves into the city. Before I tell you what happens next, subscribe to Starry-Eyed Lovers, and tell me where you're watching from. They are back at the estate by 9 p.m. Ji-ho is in the rear seat with a split lip and the slightly unfocused look of someone whose adrenaline has finished its work and left the bill on the table. He is not seriously hurt. He will have bruising along his left side where they held him against the wall, and the lip will need 2 days, and he will not sleep well for a week. Seo-jun knows this because he knows his brother, knows the specific way Ji-ho goes quiet when he is processing something his mouth is not ready to say yet. He has one hand on the back of Ji-ho's neck for most of the drive, not speaking, just the pressure of it, the animal communication of I have you. You are out, it is over. Ji-ho leans into it the way he has since he was 12 years old, and their mother worked nights, and the apartment made sounds. The twins, Ji-ho says, somewhere on the expressway. His voice is rough. Asleep. Safe. Mizon has been with them. You left them. I came back, Seo-jun says. Like I always do. Ji-ho is quiet for a moment. Then he looks across the seat at Min-jae, who is in the front, who has been in the front since they left Mapo with the clean efficiency of men who did not leave witnesses able to identify them. Ji-ho looks at him for a long time with the assessing eyes he has always had, the ones that are too old for his face. Thank you, Ji-ho says. Min-jae does not turn around. Don't thank me, he says. Your brother found you. I provided transport. Ji-ho looks at Seo-jun. Seo-jun looks at the window. They leave it there. Sung-ael's team takes Ji-ho at the estate entrance. Gentle, professional, a warm room and a medical check, and someone who will sit with him through the debrief without making it feel like one. Seo-jun watches his brother disappear through the east door and stands in the entryway for a moment, running the inventory he always runs. Threat neutralized, Ji-ho physically intact, twins accounted for, estate perimeter confirmed clear. Everything in its column. Everything where it belongs. He turns around to tell Min-jae they need to talk about the mole, about the tablet, the channel, the interior leak that made tonight necessary, and stops. Min-jae is standing 6 feet away, still in the entryway, and he is looking at his right hand. The cut runs across his palm. Not deep enough for stitches but long, the kind of cut that comes from catching a blade bare-handed, which is an action that is either instinctive or suicidal, and in Min-jae's case was almost certainly both. Seo-jun had not seen it happen. He had been moving Ji-ho toward the exit. He had heard a sound and turned to find the situation already resolved, and had not thought to ask how. Min-jae is staring at his hand with the blank expression of a man reviewing damage to something that belongs to him in a purely logistical sense. Not pain. Not distress. Simply assessment. Severity. Required action. The blood has dried unevenly in the lines of his palm, and he is looking at it the way he looks at documents, gathering information. Seo-jun crosses the entryway without deciding to. He takes Min-jae's hand in both of his own. Not gently, not roughly, with the matter-of-fact grip of someone who has identified a problem and is addressing it, and Min-jae does not pull back. He looks up from his hand to Seo-jun's face with an expression that is not quite surprise, but is the thing that exists just before surprise, the moment before the usual defenses register that they should have closed ranks. Kitchen, Seo-jun says. Min-jae follows him. The house is quiet at this hour. The kitchen holds the particular nighttime stillness of a room that serves its real purpose in daylight, and at night becomes something more neutral, more honest. Seo-jun moves with the efficiency of someone who has located the first aid kit on his second day in the East Wing and has known its contents by heart ever since. He runs water in the sink, warm, not hot, and holds Min-jae's palm under it and watches the dried blood soften and rinse away and reveal the cut beneath clean-edged, about 7 centimeters, already beginning the slow work of closing. Min-jae says nothing. He stands at the sink with his hand under Seo-jun's and watches. Antiseptic next. The cotton pad. Seo-jun works without narrating it, without the performative gentleness that would make this into something it doesn't need to be announced as. He presses the antiseptic to the cut with appropriate pressure and holds it for the necessary count and moves on. Min-jae's hand is very still in his. He is watching Seo-jun's hands with an attention that has nothing to do with the wound. The gauze unrolls in the quiet. I didn't reject you because I didn't want you. No preamble. No clearing of the throat, no shift in posture, no signal that something important is arriving. Just the words, in Min-jae's usual register, except that the usual register is doing something it was not designed to carry, and the weight of it is audible in the way a hairline fracture is visible. Only if you know where to look, only if you are already close. Seo-jun's hands go still. The gauze is half-wound. The cut is half-wrapped. The kitchen holds its breath. Then why? Seo-jun says. His voice is even. He has always been good at even. His eyes, when he makes himself look up, are not even at all. They are 3 years of a question he has not been willing to ask because asking requires believing an answer is possible. And he has not been willing to believe that, and Min-jae is looking back at him now with something completely undefended in his face, and it is the most frightening thing Seo-jun has seen in a building full of dangerous men. The silence is long. It is not empty. It is the kind of silence that is full of everything that has not been said across 3 years of shared space and deliberate distance, and a rocking chair moved 3 inches that neither of them put back. Because wanting you, Min-jae says and stops. Starts again, slower, like a man who has found the words before but never said them aloud, and is discovering they have more mass than they did in his head. Because wanting you is the only thing that has ever made me afraid. The gauze is still in Seo-jun's hands. Neither of them moves. Outside, the estate makes its nighttime sounds. The perimeter check, the distant gate, the ordinary machinery of a house that does not know that something has just shifted permanently in its kitchen. The cut on Min-jae's palm is still half-wrapped. His hand is still in Seo-jun's. The space between them is the smallest it has been in 3 years, and neither of them closes it, and neither of them steps back, and the night continues around them doing what nights do. Moving through its hours, indifferent and patient, leaving the people inside it to find their own way through the dark. Seo-jun looks at Min-jae's hand. At the cut. At the gauze. He finishes wrapping it. Slowly. Each pass deliberate. His hands have steadied again. Not because the feeling has gone, but because he has always known that steadiness and feeling are not mutually exclusive. That is perhaps the central difference between them. He ties the end and smooths it flat with his thumb and does not let go of Min-jae's hand immediately once he is done. 1 breath. 2. Then he releases it. Don't catch blades bare-handed, he says quietly. You have sons now. Act like it. Min-jae looks at his wrapped hand. Something moves through his expression that is not quite a smile, and is not quite grief, and is perhaps the place where those 2 things share a border. Noted, he says. The morning of the board meeting, Seo-jun is awake before 5. He does not tell Min-jae what he is planning. This is deliberate. Not because he is concealing it, he has thought carefully about this distinction, but because what he is about to do is not a joint operation. It is not a coordinated maneuver that requires tactical alignment. It is a thing he has been building for 3 years, alone, in the margins of a life that was not supposed to give him margins, and it belongs to him entirely, and he will deliver it himself. He dresses with care. Not armor, not performance, precision. The charcoal suit he had sent from the East Wing wardrobe 3 days ago, which fits the way things fit when they are chosen rather than assigned. His grandmother's ring on his right hand, which he wears when he needs to remember that he comes from people who survived things. Nothing else. He does not need anything else. He checks on the twins at 5:30. Bile is on his back looking at the ceiling mobile with the philosophical attention he brings to everything above him. Dole is asleep with his fist against his mouth. Seo-jun stands at the crib rail and looks at them for 60 seconds, not in the compressed, memorizing way of the night he left for Mapo, but steadily, without urgency. He is not going somewhere dangerous. He is going somewhere that will feel dangerous to the men already in the room, which is a different thing entirely. I'll be back before lunch, he tells them. Bile blinks at the mobile. Dole sleeps on. The John Syndicate's formal meeting chamber is on the 40th floor of a building in Uedo that is, by design, colder than necessary. The architecture communicates a single message to everyone who enters it. You are small, and we have been here longer than you. The table seats 22. The chairs are low relative to the table's surface by exactly enough to be felt without being noticed. The windows run floor to ceiling and the Han River below looks, from this height, like something decorative. Elder Choi arrives at 8:45, which means he has been anticipating this for longer than the meeting requires. Seo-jun knows this because Sung-ail's contact in the building confirmed his arrival time, confirmed the presence of the successor candidate in the anteroom adjacent to the chamber. A man named John Taeyul, 34, Alpha-born, third-degree relation to Min Jae's line, whose sole qualification for the regency is that Elder Choi selected him, and confirmed that the full complement of 7 voting board members is present and seated by 8:58. What the contact did not confirm, because he did not know, is that Seo-jun is in the elevator at 9:01. The doors open at 9:02. The walk from the elevator bank to the chamber doors is 40 feet of gray stone flooring that sounds, under his shoes, like something being counted. The security presence outside the chamber, 2 men, syndicate standard, who have been told the meeting is closed, registers him and does not move immediately because they are not sure, in the first 2 seconds, that they are authorized to stop him. Those 2 seconds are all he needs. He pushes through the chamber doors before the authorization question resolves itself, and he is inside. The room goes silent in the specific way that rooms go silent when something enters that was not in the agenda. 12 faces turn toward him. Elder Choi, at the table's head, goes very still in the manner of a man whose plan has just acquired an unscheduled variable and who is, for the first time in 2 weeks, uncertain of his numbers. The other board members hold their various expressions: surprise, calculation, a few with the careful blankness of men who have not yet decided which side of this moment they want to be on. Seo-jun walks the length of the room. He does not acknowledge the faces. He does not perform confidence because he is not performing. He is simply moving through a space toward a destination, the way you move when the outcome is not in question. He reaches the far end of the table, sets his document down on the surface, and slides it toward the center with a single unhurried motion. Before you vote, he says, you should know what you're voting on. Elder Choi looks at the document. He does not reach for it immediately, which means he is running the calculation. What it could be, what threat it represents, whether the correct response is to dismiss it publicly or examine it privately. The calculation takes him 4 seconds. He reaches for it. The silence while he reads is the most useful silence Seo-jun has experienced in 3 years. He watches Elder Choi's face move through its stages. Initial dismissal, then attention, then the specific quality of stillness that arrives when a man realizes the ground he was standing on has been replaced with something else while he was looking in another direction. He watches it travel to Elder Beck, who receives the document next and is faster, 3 seconds to the stillness. Elder Park, who is slower, and whose stillness when it arrives is the deepest. 3 years. 6 jurisdictions. 7 legal frameworks, 1 added at Attorney Yoon's recommendation 46 hours ago. Every offshore account, every holding, every asset the board has been counting as leverage in this vote, restructured into a dual trust that requires 2 signatures to access. His and Min Jae's. Jointly. Inseparably. You can remove Seo-jun's standing. You can vote him out, vote him down, invoke every clause Elder Choi has spent 2 weeks polishing. And then you can watch every offshore asset in the John Syndicate's portfolio sit perfectly still, inaccessible, until Han Seo-jun decides to cooperate. Which he will not be doing. You can vote to strip my standing, Seo-jun says, into the silence, to the room, to the 12 faces and the 40 floors of empty air beneath them. But you cannot move a single asset without my cooperation. He picks up his copy of the document from the table. And I am not interested in cooperating with anyone in this room. He tucks the document under his arm. He walks out. The security presence outside the doors has been reinforced. A 3rd man, called in while he was inside. All 3 of them look at him as the doors close behind him. He meets each set of eyes briefly, without stopping, and continues to the elevator. He presses the button. He waits. Behind the closed chamber doors, there is no sound of a vote being called to order. There is the low, indistinct sound of men renegotiating their positions in real time, which sounds different from a vote, rougher, less formal, the sound of a structure being rapidly reassessed by the people inside it. The elevator arrives. The vote never happens. Seo-jun steps in, presses the lobby button, and watches the doors close on the 40th floor and everything Elder Choi spent 2 weeks building. His reflection in the elevator's mirrored panel is composed. The ring on his right hand catches the light. He thinks of his grandmother's kitchen. The smell of it. The songs she sang that didn't mean anything except you are held. You are not alone. The night is long, but it ends. He is back at the estate before lunch, as promised. Bile is still looking at the ceiling. Dole is awake now, and when Seo-jun picks him up, he turns his face immediately toward his father's collar, and holds on with the absolute conviction of someone who does not know the word for trust but has already decided on it. Seo-jun stands at the nursery window with his son against his chest, and lets the morning finish itself. The thread is in the financial records, which is where threads always are if you know how to read them. Seo-jun has been in the estate's internal accounting system for 11 days. Access granted quietly, through the same counterfiling that put his signature beside Min Jae's on the succession documentation. No one flagged it as significant. It looked like domestic administrative access, which is what it was designed to look like, and the men who might have questioned it were occupied with the aftermath of the boardroom and the collapse of Elder Choi's coalition and the various fires that follow when a 2-week plan disintegrates in a single morning. He found the first anomaly on day 4. A microtransaction, 40,000 won, unremarkable, routed through a maintenance vendor account. He would not have noticed it except that the vendor account it touched had been closed 8 months ago, and closed accounts do not process transactions, and something that should not exist had been used as if it still did. He pulled the thread. It took 7 more days to follow it to its end, which is the patience the work requires, and which Seo-jun has always had in greater supply than anyone estimated. The thread led through 4 dormant accounts, 2 decommissioned communication nodes, and a routing pattern that had been constructed with genuine skill. The kind of skill that comes from 12 years of intimate knowledge of the system's architecture. The kind of skill that belongs to someone who helped build the channels they were now using to bleed them. Park Hyun-soo, communications officer, 12 years of service. The man who held the encryption keys for the syndicate's highest-level operational channels and who had, for 2 of those 12 years, been selling their shape to the Woolsung clan. Not the content, the shape. The routing patterns, the channel assignments, the device registrations. Enough for Woolsung to know which tablet to use to reach Seo-jun at 4:17 p.m. on a Thursday. Enough for Ji-ho to spend 8 hours on a concrete floor in Mapo. Seo-jun finds him in the basement server room at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday, which is the hour Park Hyun-soo has apparently chosen, for 2 years, to make his transmissions. The lights are on. The servers hum their indifferent hum. Park Hyun-soo is at the central terminal with his back to the door and his headset on, and does not hear Seo-jun enter. He hears the gun. The sound of a safety disengaging in a quiet room is its own kind of announcement. Park Hyun-soo goes very still. Slowly, with the movements of a man who understands his situation completely, he removes the headset and places both hands flat on the console and turns around. Seo-jun is standing 8 feet away with the gun level, and his expression the expression of a man who has already completed every prior step of this process, and is now simply at its conclusion. Not rage. Not satisfaction. The particular calm of someone who has followed a thing to its end and is present for the ending. Hands, Seo-jun says. Park Hyun-soo looks at him. At the gun, at his face, at the absence of anything in that face that suggests negotiation is available, and lowers himself to his knees. Min Jae arrives 4 minutes later. He appears in the server room doorway and takes in the scene without movement. The traitor on the floor, Seo-jun standing over him steady and unhurried. The gun held with the ease of someone for whom this is not the first time, and will not be the last. Something moves through Min Jae's face that travels past surprise to its far side. It is recognition. It is the specific expression of a man who has been looking at something for 3 years through the wrong lens, and has just understood what he was actually seeing. He crosses the room. He reaches Seo-jun, and he takes the gun. Not urgently, not commandingly, his hand closing over Seo-jun's on the grip, and lifting it away with the same deliberate care that Seo-jun used on his wrapped palm in the kitchen. And then, with the gun transferred, he does not immediately release Seo-jun's hand. He holds it for a moment, one breath, perhaps two, before he lets go. Neither of them looks at Park Hyun-soo on the floor. The emergency session is tomorrow, Min-jae says. The full board. The clan heads. Every faction with a seat. I know. It will be the longest meeting in the syndicate's history. There will be people in that room who came specifically to watch one of us fail. I know that too. Min-jae is quiet for a moment. When he speaks again, his voice has the quality it had in the kitchen. Stripped of its operational register, carrying something that does not have a tactical name. Will you stand with me? Seo-jun looks at him. Not past him, not at the variables surrounding him, not at the version of him that exists in hospital rooms and board-filed documents and the cold architecture of 3 years of managed distance. At him, the man in the server room with a gun in his hand and something undefended in his face and a wrapped palm that he is not, Seo-jun notices, favored once this evening. I'll stand beside you, Seo-jun says. Not behind you. The server room hums. Min-jae holds his gaze for a long moment, and something in him settles. Not collapses, not surrenders, but settles, the way a foundation settles when the weight it was built for finally arrives. Yes, he says. So quietly it barely carries. That's exactly what I meant. Behind them, 2 of Sung-ail's people appear in the doorway to take custody of Park Hyun-soo. There is the practical business of the next few minutes. The securing, the documentation, the beginning of whatever accounting a 12-year betrayal requires. It proceeds without them. They leave the basement together, side by side, through the corridor and up the stairs and back into the house, which is quiet and warm and holds their sons sleeping at the end of its east wing. Neither of them speaks. There is nothing that needs to be said tonight that has not already been said, and everything that remains can wait for tomorrow, for the full board and the clan heads, and the room full of people waiting to watch one of them fail. They will not be watching one of them. That is the thing no one in that room has yet accounted for. Behind them in the basement, the lights stay on.